this?
Who's this?
This is Quinn.
What's your favorite scary movie, Quinn?
Oh, God, how much time do you have?
Huh? Oh,
seriously, there's The Hills
not
Have
a lot of time.
Eyes, there's Texas Chainsaw, there's also Texas Chainsaw 2, and then you have your traditionals like Nightmare on Elm Street, you have
Okay, slasher. What's your favorite slasher
well, you know what? You gotta narrow it down for me a little bit. Are you talking about like Alfred Hitchcock 1960s or like the 80s? Let me tell you about 80s slasher. Hello? Hope he calls back.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
Scarifyer has partnered with Notoriously Morbid. Notoriously Morbid has everything you need to get your horror fix, including collectibles, apparel, and more. Their cosmetics line includes beautiful chromes, mesmerizing lipsticks, all in stunning shades. Head over to Notoriously Morbid and enter Scarifyer10 at checkout for your 10% discount.
Hello, you horror junkies, and welcome to your favorite scary movie podcast, Scarifyer. I am your host, the Gov.
And I'm Quinn. And before we get in, a couple things that I wanted to let everyone know. If anyone is looking for where you can listen and stream our podcast, if you head to linktree.com, all of our outlets for platforms are on there, including YouTube. So if there's any platforms that you're trying to find us on and you're not sure where we're listed, if you head over to linktree.com, you can find every single platform that we are available on. So check it out and don't forget to share us with people.
Today on Scarifyer, it's a movie that I have been waiting to talk about for a long time.
This is like one of my favorites.
It's been on our short list for a while, and we just haven't been able to get to it, but now's the perfect time to get to it. We're talking the original 1996 Scream. And why it's so imperfect is because as the week of this recording, the trailer dropped.
I'm so excited.
The trailer dropped for the brand new Scream, not called Scream 5.
Let it go.
Just called Scream.
You got issues.
I do have big issues with that kind of title. But we're not talking about that film because that film has not yet been released. Buckle up. This is going to be a long one.
Oh, boy.
Scream was originally developed under the title Scary Movie by Kevin Williamson, an inspiring screenwriter influenced by a news story he was watching about a series of grisly murders by the Gainesville Ripper. He was inspired to draft an 18-page script treatment about a young woman alone in a house who is taunted over the phone and then attacked by a masked killer. Over the course of 3 days, Williamson developed a full-length script as well as 2 separate 5-page outlines for potential sequels. Following the script's purchase by Miramax, Williamson was required to remove much of the gorier content, such as graphic depictions of the internal organs of a guttered murder victim rolling down their legs. However, once Wes Craven was secured as director, he was able to bring much of that content back. Bob Weinstein approached Wes Craven early in the planning stages because he felt Craven's previous work in the genre that combined horror and comedy would make him the perfect person to bring Williamson's script to screen. Craven was already busy developing a remake of The Haunting and was considering distancing himself from the horror genre. He was growing weary of what he felt was an inherent misogyny and violence in films. Weinstein approached other directors, including Robert Rodriguez, Danny Boyle, George A. Romero, and Sam Raimi. Williamson said that they didn't get it. He was concerned that having read the script, many of the directors believed the film was just to be a pure comedy. Craven was approached again, but continued to pass in spite of repeat requests. When the production of The Haunting collapsed, Craven was freed from the commitment and found himself in need of a project. Meanwhile, Drew Barrymore had signed on to the film at her own request. When he heard an established actress wanted to be involved, Craven reasoned that Scary Movie might be different from other films of the genre he had previously undertaken, and he contacted Weinstein to accept the job. Still with me?
Still with you.
Drew Barrymore read the script and was interested in being involved. She approached the production team herself for the role of Sidney Prescott. Before filming began, Barrymore was faced with an unexpected commitment issue that meant she would no longer be available to play the demanding lead role. She instead played the smaller role of Casey Becker, which allowed her to remain involved and still gave the production the advantage of her stature. Killing off one of their biggest stars early in the film was considered a calculated risk, but it was believed that it would be so shocking and unexpected that the audience would believe that any character from that point on could die. Nevertheless, Barrymore attached to the project gained the film legitimacy, and the production was able to cast the film with up-and-coming young actors and established names, mostly from television. That includes Neve Campbell, Rose McGowan, Courtney Cox, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard. David Arquette was originally considered for the role of Stu, but lobbied hard for the role of Deputy Dewey Riley. After some convincing, Wes Craven finally took a chance and gave Arquette the role. With a surprising holiday release, December 20th, 1996, Scream was a massive success, making $173 million on a $14 million budget. Scream would become responsible for revitalizing in the 90s what was considered then a dead genre, the slasher horror movie.
Is it time to wake up?
Yeah.
Wow, that
Is
was
everyone
long.
still awake? Yeah, you know what? Lately, these backstories have been kind of quick and painless, so I felt
We
like
had it
this.
coming.
There is so you know what, and that's not even a third of the production backstory of
No,
this
this-
film, which I'm sure we'll get into more of as this episode proceeds. But that's just a little glimmer of what it took to get this movie to the screen.
This movie has a lot of history to it. It really does. It's not just a slasher film and go. No, there's a lot to it.
Probably it's considered, and I agree 100%, one of the smartest horror films ever made.
Almost definitely.
Just the mere fact of taking a concept of the slasher and then satirizing it, but also taking it seriously at the same time.
It makes the rules, plays by the rules, but it also breaks and reshapes the rules all at the same time.
Absolutely.
This movie is genius. I love this.
This movie is genius. Not to blow our load early in terms of our rating, but I think it's all going to be favorable down the line.
I think it is actually my personal favorite slasher movie.
As we've noted, originally it was called Scary Movie, and we actually talk about it when we did our Scary Movie episode, that whole title of that movie was derived from this being the original title of Scream. I think the name Scream actually came from, Hollywood's favorite rapist, Harvey Weinstein. And people say that it was inspired by the Michael Jackson music video Scream. Apparently, that's why the film was renamed it.
Well, I also thought that it was perfect for the film. Because if you think about it, I don't think I've seen a movie that literally they scream so much. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But that is a big part of your sound effects is screaming.
I mean, you're right in that effect. Generally, in a horror movie, you're going to get some semblance of screaming, so why not?
It's kind of like a cut to the chase. Super simple. It's a name that sticks with you. One word, like Madonna. That's it.
And it's forever associated with these films. You almost can't imagine it being called something other.
No.
But Scary Movie tracks. It makes sense why it would be called that. What was your first exposure to this film? Do you remember?
I do. I was probably around like 11 or 12. Well, I remember when the advertisements were out for this film. It was a big deal. It was getting a lot of attention, a lot of buildup, and I remember seeing it. I was younger when it came out, and I wasn't really allowed to see like the gory stuff until I was over the age of 10. But I do remember when it came out. I remember the hype, and I remember a lot of people talking about it. First time I saw this, I think I was like 12, I think. And it stuck with me. I loved this movie since I was young, all the way to how old I am now. It made a huge impression on me that really started getting me into the, gorier films, the slasher films, and also drew my attention to Wes Craven a lot more. I knew of him, but after seeing this, I'm like, okay, I gotta see what else this guy has done. What about you, Gov?
Well, actually, my exposure to this film franchise was actually out of sequence, in meaning I did not see this film first. I actually saw Scream 3 first. Which
I'm
is
so sorry.
That's the irony of it, because this film is brilliant and Scream 3 is...
Oh, man. Scream 3 is like the worst one. Did you do that on purpose?
It's fucking Scream 3. No, it's when Scream 3 came out, that's when I was, I guess, in my parents' eyes, old enough to start watching this stuff. However, when it did come out in 96, the buzz around this film, you could not escape, even if you were younger and you couldn't watch the film. It was everywhere. Everyone knew about this. It was on television. It was in the movie theaters. The soundtrack was stupidly successful in all the music stores.
Yeah, radio, too.
Yeah.
The radio was all about the soundtrack to this film.
There was no escaping Scream.
It was a phenomenon.
Winter of 96 going into 97. However, no, it's not the first Scream film I saw. I watched the third one first, but I quickly backtracked, and this film I ended up seeing second. I remember first time seeing it too. I rented it via video store that was in a shopping center when they used to have those video stores
days.
in the grocery store. It was great. So I rented it, about a 2-3 day rental. Blew my mind, even though I had already seen the third film, and I already knew, because I had to ask friends, like, what does this mean? All these events that are happening in the third one.
You got it spoiled.
I did get it spoiled. So
Oh, gross.
Going in, I did know that, here's your spoilers, Billy and Stu were the killers, that Sydney's boyfriend and his best friend were the murderers. So I did know that. I was being surprised by the outcome was not in the cards for me.
I mean, though that can also attest to how great this film is, though, you knowing what the ending is going to be and your mind was still blown.
Exactly. It was unbelievable nonetheless, and quickly became my favorite of the franchise.
Yeah, it's the first one, you can't beat it. You cannot beat the first one.
Absolutely
I think the second one is really good, but no, nothing can touch the first one. Nothing can even come close.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into all the sequels in detail as we get closer to the release of the new and the fifth installment, aptly titled Just Scream, like this one.
Oh my gosh, let it go, man.
Anyway, the brilliance behind the Drew Barrymore role. And as we talked about in the background, how originally, yes, she was signed on to play Sidney Prescott and was set to do it about 5 to 6 weeks before filming began. Now, there's kind of contradicting stories behind this. Officially, it is what I said, that she had she had availability restraints, and she could not afford the time to do the full lead role. And it was her idea to cast her, to have her play the Casey Becker character, the one who dies in the opening sequence, which apparently was her favorite scene in the script, and which is why she wanted to do the film, was just because that scene was in it. Other reports say that she either got cold feet or wasn't sure if she wanted to be in a horror genre film, if it would wreck her stature, so she devised a way to put herself in it as little as possible.
I don't know if I believe that.
Well, the area where I could believe it, because this was at a time where she had just repaired her very damaged career because of her
I guess
poor decisions, which she made at a very young age. she was just repairing her career. She was just starting to become a name and a respectable actress again. So, and
Lindsay Lohan should have taken notes.
exactly. And so you got to remember, at the time, horror was dead. Horror was absolutely dead, let alone slasher films. We're talking about this in post, even though I like the film New Nightmare and Jason Goes to Hell and Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, Hellraiser Bloodline. You see where I'm going with this, people?
Yeah.
Horror was dead.
Yeah.
And even though how great this script was that Kevin Williamson wrote, there was still like, is this gonna work? We don't know.
Kind of like that hesitancy.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
So I don't know. I mean, again, two different accounts. One says, oh, well, you know, it was just one of those availability time crunch, you know, mistakes that she just couldn't do it. Other one is she kind of freaked out and said she might not want to be in a horror movie.
I don't know.
But the fact is she nails the role anyway.
Oh, she
so
does it perfectly.
she deserves the role of Casey Becker because she absolutely nailed it. Home run, no questions about it. And she was still a heavy part of the advertising. They kind of do a brilliant bait and switch akin to Psycho with Janet Leigh, where you think you're looking at the star in the beginning of the film when really you're not.
Yeah.
And it is her face on the poster. It is her blue eyes with the mouth, a hand over her mouth and stuff like that. That's Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
And even on the video releases where they do the Teen Vogue spread.
Yeah, she's on there.
She's front and center. So there is no reason why you shouldn't believe, based on the marketing materials, that Drew Barrymore is the star of this film. She's not. And whether it was just a quick fix of a problem or just a stroke of brilliance, it works. We feel now is the best time to tell you that Scarifyer are proud supporters of Rue Morgue. Rue Morgue is the world's leading horror and culture and entertainment brand, spearheaded by its multiple award-winning magazine, Rue Morgue and Rue Morgue Digital. But if reading's not your thing, that's okay, because there's Rue Morgue TV, the official YouTube channel, as well as Rue Morgue Cinema, which produced the acclaimed original film, The Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee. So head over to RueMorgue.com and subscribe to Rue Morgue Magazine for your bi-monthly slice of horror culture and entertainment today.
One thing that I love about this film is that it does poke at, you know, stereotypes in horror. Like one of the most famous lines that Neve Campbell talks about, you know, it's some guy in a mask running around chasing the, you know, dumb big-breasted girl who's running up the stairs when she goes out the front door. Well, what does she do as soon as he gets in the house?
Yes.
She goes right up the stairs. So she follows the rules, but also breaks it. I just love how this movie has so many different layers and dimensions to it. It's cut and dry about what it's about, but the journey there is almost like a puzzle that you have to put together, you know, and you have to pay attention to those little details that Wes Craven is so good about doing.
I mean, and another great thing that what he's great about doing is putting, you know, socialism into
Yes.
his films. And it is a very intelligent script, as you just pointed out. That's just one example of everything. It's like, and it's also these teenagers in this film, they're not idiots. They know these tropes. That's why you have like the Randy character played by Jamie Kennedy. He knows it.
Yeah.
They all know it. And yet they find themselves falling victim to the tropes that they're criticizing.
Exactly.
Because it's almost like it's unavoidable. They are in a movie.
Yeah.
So it's unavoidable. Of course she's got to run up the stairs because she has no other way out.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's another thing that attests to how genius the writing was, because if you think about it, Bill and Stu know these rules, so they have to map out almost like herding these people into those categories. You know, we got to make sure she goes up the stairs in true horror movie fashion so that she plays the part that we have assigned her.
Well, I mean, I guess that could actually lay way to some or not layaway, but that could actually admit some contrivances into the script.
What do you mean?
Because a lot of Billy and Stu's, for their plan to work, things had to have happened perfectly, so perfectly that you could almost not predict it unless you yourself are in a movie and you're like, I mean, I'm not saying that the movie is metaphysical by any means, but it's almost like just kind of like how you said, well, they have to make sure she gets up the stairs. How are you going to do that? You know, I almost, I mean, you don't need it, but I would almost love to see a, like, Billy and Stu's journal. How
Billy
they,
and
like,
Stu's playbook.
almost like how did they calculate all this stuff? I mean, let's talk about Billy and Stu for a minute. They're very damaged teenagers, and it was a reflection of the time.
Yeah.
You know, this was a time where, unfortunately, you had a lot of teenage violence, especially in schools.
Yeah.
And this film actually got criticized for exploiting that. But you got two people who are damaged, and the way the trailers and the advertisement made it come off is like they're so obsessed with horror movies that they just can't help themselves but start
Living it out.
living it out, recreating it. Billy has more of a...
Billy's is more personal.
Yeah.
Billy's is much more personal because, again, spoilers, it's been a while, guys. I think
Dude,
it's been over 20 years. I think we've all seen Scream, and if you haven't, you really should.
If you haven't seen Scream, you should not be listening to this show. We don't want you to.
Billy's is really personal, and that is something that I do want to touch on. But Billy's is really personal because Sydney's mom was kind of the town slut.
Kind of.
Well, you know, I'm trying to be nice, you know, woman to woman. Okay. She liked to play the field a little bit. All right. She had a affair with Billy's father,
Hank.
and it caused so much issue in his family that his mother just up and left.
Yeah.
Almost like she couldn't deal with it. And that's also traumatizing. You have to figure this has to be when he's a little bit older, you know? I mean, it's supposed to be the 1 year anniversary of her mom's death and stuff like that. So he had to, they're supposed to be what, like 17?
Yeah.
So he had to be around like 15, 16. Okay, so yeah, he's going to be attached to his mother at this point. And that's got to be traumatizing, you know, just to have her up and leave. And one thing that I want to say about Matthew Lillard in that where he exposes that to Sydney, her face of shock because she had no idea, but Stu's face just
You mean when
drops.
Skeet Ulrich exposes that?
Yeah.
You said Matthew Lillard.
I'm saying when Matthew Lillard hears it.
Oh, okay.
Get on with it!
Which is interesting. So that means that Stu didn't even know.
Didn't even know.
So let's talk about Stu real quick. Is Stu just going with the flow here?
I think so.
I mean, they really give Stu no explanation except that peer pressure. He does whatever his buddy Billy says to do.
Or he's so deranged that he thinks this is a great idea.
Who, show of hands on this, podcast, who buys into the underlying conspiracy theory that Billy and Stu were a thing?
Are you serious?
It's out there. It's
I
done, especially when they do that weird, when Stu kind of like hugs him from the back and stuff like
I
that.
don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I kind of
mean,
think that's what they were making fun of in Scary Movie. Because it's there.
I don't think so.
Okay, I could be
I mean,
overlooking,
what
but
do
I
I
know I'm
know?
not the only one. But it is interesting observation that that Billy was holding on to this pain even from his cohort. You know what I mean?
Because I mean, it's one of the hardest hitting scenes in the movie for me. When I first saw it, that like put a thud in my chest. Is Skeet Ulrich delivering this line, talking about this, and Nev Campbell's face drops. And then the camera pans over to Matthew Lillard, and his face just drops. So it's like everyone is shocked by this bomb. Like, oh my God, this is real for him, you know? I mean, to you, it might just be a game, but for Billy, this is real. this is him taking out his hurt, you know? That also, I think, adds some depth to his character.
I think that's the real twist of the reveal of who the killers are. Not so much that it's the boyfriend, because even then there was kind of a like, well, of course it's the boyfriend.
But
because even though they set up the red herring that it couldn't have been him because, you know, the call didn't come from his phone or he was with somebody else, yada, yada, yada. But even when it was revealed that it was Billy Loomis behind this, you still kind of, well, yeah, you still have kind of a duh. But until he explains himself, that's when you're like, oh.
But I have seen a lot of behind the scenes footage about this, and I do know that when they were trying to figure out like a motive, when he was trying to write like why they were doing this, he couldn't choose between violence just for violence sake, which is absolutely terrifying, or where there was another motive. So I think Stu not knowing was that perfect balance. Stu's doing it just to do it, and that's terrifying, and Billy's doing it for a vendetta purpose. So it's that perfect balance for a killer.
Yeah, no, he got to have his cake and eat it too with this one. As you said, Kevin Williamson was, you know, back and forth on no motive or revenge motive.
Yeah.
So I applaud him for that, because it is terrifying when somebody does an act of violence so grisly and there's no rhyme or reason behind it. Kevin Williamson's favorite horror movie was Halloween, and it shows. Neve Campbell has got to be
She's my queen.
one of, if not the greatest final girl ever put to screen. Maybe second only to Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode.
Neve Campbell set a bar that, like you said, Jamie Lee Curtis started it. And there were some people that came close.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, no, there's some great ones. You got your Heather Langenkamps.
I'm not diminishing anybody. Neve Campbell stepped up to that bar.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just my opinion. She is this very innocent and quiet character, and then she just pulls out the badass, and she is the final girl, in my opinion.
You know, a lot like to compare Sidney Prescott to Ripley from Aliens. Mm-hmm. I see much more of an Alice from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4.
I can see what you're
Lisa
saying.
Wilcox, what's up?
I can kind of see what you're saying, because it is that kind of quiet, shy character that, you know, doesn't really say anything, is kind of mousy. And then when the time comes, they just kick ass.
Another stroke of brilliance in the script is that as we're playing with these horror movie tropes that everyone in the film is so smart and hip to, Randy sets up the rules. The rules are, say it with me.
Number 1, you can never have sex. Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Now, Sydney breaks one of the most fundamental rules right before the climax. She herself climaxes and has sex with her boyfriend, Billy, which I guess also plays into another reason why Billy's insane, sexually repressed. We've heard this one before.
I didn't take it as sexual repression, but I mean...
Oh, absolutely. The first scene when he climbs in through the first window, that guy is jonesing.
What the hell?
He even says it. He goes, we started hot and heavy, solid R rating on the way to an NC-17, and then her mom died, and all of a sudden they're made for television. A lot of film analogies for sex in this movie. He's totally sexually repressed. He's hitting his head against the wall, both of them.
I never wanted to think of Skeet Ulrich like that, so thanks for that.
No, it's not Skeet Ulrich. That's what a huge problem the character has.
I mean, so wait, you're saying that he's like blue ballsing it throughout the entire film?
Unless Stu helped him out,
Oh my God.
Stop! That's enough!
Deputy Dewey. Who does not love David Arquette in this film? You don't like Deputy Dewey.
I don't care for David Arquette.
Why? Like the actor or the character? I'm talking specifically about Dewey.
Specifically Dewey.
What are you just talking about?
Okay, hold on a second.
All right.
Dewey's okay.
Okay.
He's just goofy to me. I almost can't take him seriously. He gets better in the later films, but in this first film, he's just too Gumby.
He's supposed to be. He is.
But why?
Because he's this young, kind of green Barney Fife type guy.
Yeah.
Who thinks he's obviously Don Knotts, but he thinks he's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's not the problem. That's what makes him great. And he becomes a hero at the end. In fact, from what I understand, he was supposed to die, but test audiences revolted.
Yeah, they got mad.
Then they wanted to see him live. I can't remember if it was this film or the second one. It might have been the second one. Because he is such a beloved...
No, he was supposed to die in the first one.
Was it the first one?
Yeah, that's because the stretcher at the end, Courtney Cox is wearing a wig because she already cut her hair.
Okay. Well, correct us in the comments. Was it Scream 1 or Scream 2 where Dewey was supposed to die? I love Dewey. How dare you, Quinn?
I dare.
Oh my God.
I'm not a Dewey fan.
He is a legacy character. One of the few that have made it through all...
noted.
At this point, 5 films.
So is Gail.
I said 1, not just...
I know, but...
Gail's great too, but...
I'm not going to lie. Upon my first viewing, I hated Gail.
She's supposed to be a hateable character.
I hated her.
She is supposed to be a reprehensible character, which is the reason why Courtney Cox wanted to do it. She never got to, in her words, ever got to play a bitch on screen. She was getting tired of being...
the good girl.
Monica Geller.
Yeah. And again, huge character arc in the next couple of films for Gail's character.
Interestingly, they were an inch close of casting Brooke Sheerock, Courtney Cox, huge television star. Absolutely, it's hers.
Yeah, no, I can't really imagine anybody else because she does own the role.
She nails it.
Yeah.
Absolutely nails it. And even...
Everybody was perfectly cast in this flick.
I can agree to that. I'm trying to think if there's any character that I didn't really care about.
Tatum?
No, I would even say Tatum is a good character and kind of a girl who dies via dog door in the garage. I want to talk about it. If we're talking about Tatum, this is the only thing I really want to talk about Tatum. That makes zero sense. Even when I was younger watching this film, I'm like, okay, there's no way a garage door can sustain the weight of a human being enough to raise them to the point where they snap their necks on said door.
Very stupid! Now I'm getting a migraine!
No, that's the only death in this film. Tatum's death's the only one where I kind of roll my eyes and be like, okay, we got to suspend disbelief. You had me up until this moment, and I'm like, okay, that can't
All
be right.
Mythbusters, we have a challenge for you.
I thought they might have already done it.
They might have.
I don't know if this myth has been busted. It's just I didn't buy it. I'm just saying. Okay, Quinn, quick response. Favorite character in this film? Go.
Sydney.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
Because she almost like embodies everything, and she throughout the film she almost like embraces that she is this survivor, you know, and no matter what, even if she is petrified of what's coming her way, it doesn't stop her. Certainly doesn't slow her down.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's great.
I mean, one of the great things about Sydney is, again, she starts off, I mean, not just so much the innocence of the girl next door and stuff like that, but let's not forget, she finger pointed a man who supposedly killed her mother and was wrong.
And she redeems herself for that.
Exactly. So, like that. And it turns out that the person that did it is the person who's supposedly the most closest to her.
Exactly.
This character has a rough go of it.
No, she does. But that's the other thing that I like is that she's not perfect.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? She makes Big errors.
In those shortcomings, she displays the most strength also.
Exactly. All right, Gov, favorite character, go.
Hands down, Kenny.
Kenny, really?
cameraman.
Why?
No, it's Sydney.
Sydney?
Sydney for all the reasons that you just said.
Yeah.
And she not only deserves to be arguably the greatest final girl, but she deserves to survive all 5 Scream films. That's right. She better survive the new one.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So it's about that time to pull out that Scarifyer scale and rate this bitch. But before that, Quinn, you want to tell them where they can find us?
All right, guys. So in case you were trying to find out what any other kind of platforms we are available on, or if you know somebody who wants to listen to us, but you're not sure what they like to use for listening platforms for podcasts, head over to linktree.com and look us up, Scarifyer. We're also still available on YouTube. Again, Linktree, it's going to have a list of every platform that we are available on. So head over, check it out, share it with people.
All right, the scale is up. 1 out of 5. Quinn, is this film a whisper or a scream?
It is a blaring scream. It's a 5, hands down.
Wow.
I adore this film. I think this film is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's well balanced. It ages well. It's the perfect embodiment, in my opinion, of what I look for in a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
It's got scares, it's got guts, it's got an intriguing story, it's got good characters, it has funny moments, but it doesn't overshadow all the rest of the film. The writing is brilliant, the cinematography is brilliant. It's Wes Craven, so that's already a win. The cast is incredible. It's just, I could go on and on about this film. I love it.
For me, I'm gonna give it a 4.8. It's damn near perfect. It's almost
Blasphemy.
well. Like, here's the thing. That is probably the greatest rating I could give. I don't think there is a film that's a 5 for me.
Ooh.
But it's okay. This isn't a perfect film, but it's damn near perfect. It is so intelligent. It is so smart. It's so entertaining. I argue you can sit down a non-horror fan and they will love this film.
Yeah.
They might close their eyes at the slash and gas scenes, but who cares? It's such a good story. The characters are nearly flawless. Their character arcs are great. The writing's brilliant. The editing, the movie is beautifully shot. Wes Craven is absolutely at his finest here, second only to maybe A Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's such a great film. Why not a full 5 for me? Just a couple of little things, and they are nitpicks. I'll admit it. They are nitpicks. Is Tatum's death creative? Yes, but is it also ridiculous? Absolutely. Some of the stuff with Stu is a little, sticking the tongue out and the spit and stuff like that. Matthew Lillard is a great actor, and I've had the great opportunity to meet the man. To you saying that the cast is perfect, you're right. They are perfectly cast. It's such a great film, guys. I can't recommend it enough. It's easily a movie I've seen, maybe not in the hundreds, but definitely the dozens of times. So, in light of a brand new Scream coming out in the month of January, year 2022, we're very excited, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the other Scream movies as we get closer to the release of the 5th installment, the rebooted series, I suppose. But I'm glad we got to talk about the original Scream, and our love for this scary movie will never go one step too far. Alright, the Gov is going to tell you real quick how to bring the horror into your own home with a handmade soy wax candle from American Nightmare Candle Company. The scents are inspired by locations iconic to the horror genre, places like the Overlook Hotel, Sleepy Hollow, and Elm Street. Each fragrance combination is carefully curated to transport you into the story, and the catalog is ever evolving. So head over to Etsy or to AmericanNightmareCandles.com and get 10% off when you use the code Scarifyer at checkout. This deal only makes sense, so get your American Nightmare candle today.
Hey there, it's Quinn from Scarifyer. You ever have one of those days where you're out on the lake and the sun's going down, gazing into the eyes of that special someone, and then you realize, I brought my machete, but no hockey mask? Well, if you're in a rush to make a killing, head over to 13X Studios and get your very own custom hockey mask. Mask creator Rick Stizinski takes a hands-on approach to every order to create the perfect mask to your specialized needs. Why would you settle for red triangles when you can shop an assortment of original styles and colors? Rick's clientele includes Nightmare Toys, Kevin Smith, and Kane Hodder. Head online to follow 13X Studio on all social media platforms. Then go over to 13X Studios on Etsy to put in your custom order today. Don't get caught with your mask off while devising your next decapitation. Go to 13xstudios.com.
Scarifyer.